Well, I'm delighted to have as our guest today Chuck DeVore, who represents the 70th District of the state of California. And more importantly to me, he's getting ready to run against one of our favorites, Senator Barbara Boxer. I say that with a little bit of tongue-in-cheek, in fact, my entire tongue. But Chuck has been honored as the Legislator of the Year by seven different groups in California. He was a Reagan White House appointee, assistant for Foreign Affairs. After more than 24 years service, he retired from the Army National Guard with the rank of Lieutenant Colonel, graduate of the U.S. Army Command and General Staff College, and he is very knowledgeable on many, many important areas important to our country, and I'm delighted that he's doing what he's doing. Thanks for being with us today, Chuck.
Hey, thanks for having me on your show.
Well, how is it looking with regard to Barbara Boxer? I hope, first of all, you never call her ma'am. You'll always call her senator. I don't want you to get slapped down. You know?
Well, being in the military for so long and being raised correctly by my mother, I may just call her ma'am during the debate if she will ever agree to do that, and hopefully that won't set her off. She is the gift that keeps on giving. Not only did she dress down Brigadier General Walsh, and of course we immediately turned that into a few different YouTube videos, one of which we compared Barbara Boxer to Mike Myers' character Dr. Evil in the Austin Powers movie series, and that YouTube video has 100,000 views now. Then just a few weeks ago with Harry Alford, the head of the National Black Chamber of Commerce, when Mr. Alford was presenting a 70-page, heavily footnoted report about how this massive energy tax under the guise of cap and trade would destroy about 2+ million American jobs. And so Mr. Alford is there presenting his report, which I've read, and Barbara Boxer tries to compare his report to an ACLU resolution which had no science or economics behind it, just a resolution saying global warming's bad. And Mr. Alford properly called her on it, saying, what are you, like, trotting out a resolution from one black group to put up against me? Mm-hmm. And
she saw it totally as a racial thing. He was black, so she had to counter with a black group.
Absolutely.
And so forth, and he properly took umbrage at it.
Absolutely. I spoke to Mr. Alford a couple of days later for about half an hour, and we sent a campaign camera crew in to interview him. He's still upset about it, and I think he should be, because his survey, his study, is actually very solid. 70 pages of solid economics and analysis.
Tell me about California for a minute. You've been one of the leaders in the legislature there, and you've had a real difficult time with the budget because Democrats and some Republicans don't want to cut spending. But you finally worked that out, and looks like the governor's on the right track on this one.
Well, we now have Governor 3.0. After being kind of a right-of-center populist fiscal reformer when he was first elected in the historic recall, he was more or less on the side of the taxpayer from 2003 to 2005. When he lost his all-in gamble of a statewide series of reform measures that the union spent $150 million to stop, when he lost them all, he immediately flipped to a kind of a go-along to get-along left-of-center big government Republican, and he stayed that way until May 19th, which is when we had a vote to extend the largest tax increase at the state level in U.S. history for 2 additional years. The legislature had voted very unwisely to increase taxes in this deep recession last February of 2009. This was a vote to extend that tax increase another 2 years in exchange for kind of a mirage of a spending limit. Well, that went down almost 2-to-1. Even though the Chamber of Commerce and various business and labor groups were in favor of it. The day after, the governor rejoined our ranks as a fiscal conservative, and I'm glad to say that we actually had some modest reforms in health care delivery for the aged and the indigent. We actually had some modest welfare reforms that will reduce fraud and target the money at those who really, truly need it. We had some spending reductions. Far too many of them were really smoke and mirrors. And the one proposal that would have actually generated ongoing revenue for 14 years would have opened up the first new offshore oil lease in state waters in 40 years. That was my bill. It passed the state Senate and actually failed in the Assembly, where we expunged the vote. The majority made the vote just disappear, so you won't actually find the vote on the official record. And unfortunately, that piece of legislation, which would have put about $1.8 billion into our Treasury over 14 years, was the only non-tax recurring revenue in the budget solution. So if you would think of California as an aircraft that was heading straight into the ground prior to the budget vote a couple of weeks ago, it's now an aircraft maybe at a 45-degree angle, but still heading toward the ground. And I predict, unfortunately, we're going to have another mid-year budget revision with further spending reduction.
Let me ask you this. What has the nation learned? What should the nation learn from California's experience?
Well, it's a very important lesson. You know, the old saying is, as goes California, goes the nation when it comes to different social trends and cultural and government trends. That is a huge warning for the rest of the country, that big government that tries to take care of you from cradle to grave, nanny government, doesn't work. It's costly, it's inefficient, it's overbearing, the regulations stifle innovation and creativity. This soft love approach of coddling people and building up government is unsustainable.
Well, what can't go on forever won't, and California is learning that, and the nation's going to learn that.
Absolutely. I mean, even with the Democrats in control.
Let me change courses with you a minute, because you've got such a varied background. You studied in Cairo for how long?
Well, I was there for half a year in Cairo, Egypt, not in southern Illinois.
What do you take away? You have studied Islam and you know that part of the world. What do we take away from your experiences there?
There is a way of interpreting Islam that looks at government in a way that is very alien to the way we think of government. You see, Islam never had a reformation. And so in classical Islamic political and religious thought, there can be no separation between church and state. Church and state must be one in the same. And there are certain individuals then within the Islamic world that, because of this belief, can never be at peace with any non-Islamic powers. Now, obviously, there's a large number of people who are Muslims who are wonderful citizens and law-abiding, and who have a wonderful adherence and interpretation to their faith. But there is a segment for whom peace is not an option. In fact, in Arabic, there's actually two different words for peace, salam and suluh. And salam, peace, according to this doctrine, can only be achieved between two Muslim powers. Suluh, which is interpreted or translated as peace, is actually an armistice.
Well, let's hope that the leaders of this country will know the difference, or at least learn the difference, before they sit down and negotiate our position with them. So we could use your help up here, Chuck. All the best to you with regard to Barbara Boxer. Chuck DeVore, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to be hearing a lot more of him.